Okay, so welcome to Module 3. We're going to be talking about the instructional minutes today, breaking down ELD minutes and your Spanish instructional minutes. The first thing I wanted to share with you is this link right here, DLI Academic Terminology. Created either last year or the year before of a bunch of terminology, academic terminology, and they just couldn't figure out, well, how do you, for example, how do you say the word scholar in Spanish? What do you use so that it's going to be consistent terminology moving from kinder all the way up, right? And so these were just kind of team agreed upon. And see, this is 2018-19. So this was before last year even, Bertha. So I don't even know if you've seen this. And so I'm so glad you're here too. Add to this, this is something, and we'll bring it back to everyone's radar again, but this is something to take a look at. So when you're using these particular words, you can see what the agreed upon at that time, what the agreed upon language was for Spanish, how you'll say those things in Spanish. And so these are also grade specific things that they were thinking about. They couldn't think of how do you say the word graphic organizer. And this is what they agreed upon. We just wanted to share with you that these are here for you. But I can only imagine if you're teaching Spanish, even if you know the language. I mean, I've taught in English my whole life, and I know the English language, and there are still words that I struggle to find as a teacher when I'm explaining them in the classroom. And the same thing I would imagine applies to when you're doing teaching in Spanish. And so sometimes it's like, wow.
And the other idea too behind this is like one of the best practices that we really could adopt as a whole collective team, because of the different places where we're from too. And so a perfect example, as we were opening and really developing practices, one of the examples is, for example, popote. From Mexico, we call it popote, but from Peru, from Peru, they say a completely different word that I would have not ever known, and from different parts of the world. And so this is a really nice way, a proactive way to eliminate those barriers for students to where they're having to learn new terminology for very simple concepts. In a sense of vertically articulating this way, where, okay, so we're going to all agree, we can all call it different things and identify different things, but we're going to agree the place value is going to be valor proporcional, right? That kind of thing, which I think it needs to be corrected. That kind of thing. So those are the ideas, but Tina made great points as far as just getting on the same page with some of these terms that we don't typically use.
Sorry to interrupt you. I had to address that in terms of like cake, pastel, torta, like, there's different words. And so I didn't come to realize that until I was in college, when I was going through my credential program and noticing these differences, and there's so many other, I think there's 2 or 3 more ways that people like, there's someone, I've never heard of cake being referred to that, but it's just very interesting how like
bizcocho or something like that.
That's what it is. I'm like, I thought that was
yeah.
Like,
and I never use that word either. Yeah.
And I was like, so let's respect each other's opinion, but for this sake, and usually what I did is try to find out, like, well, how is it actually tested, like here in the United States, which is, that's what Bertha and I are trying to, like, okay, like to a purpose, right? And let them know, though, aware that be sensitive to these other cultures that are Latin American, and that it's okay, that's how they address it. It's not that, oh, they're incorrect,
Right.
I had a phenomenal UCR professor who told me, and I said, don't you ever dare tell someone that it's incorrect. It's just that's what they grew up on, It's just, this is the academic, or this is, the target goal, the language target goal,
Mm-hmm. I wanted to share a potential resource for you too, and this is for everyone, actually, not just DLI, but I was just recently on a webinar, and they shared a website called Traductor. I don't know if that means anything in Spanish, but the idea behind it, it's TRADUCTORE.
Sounds like it's like a translator.
And it is, and actually it's a translator for different dialects. So you can put, it's like regional, like a drop down, and then it will show what the words are in different dialects in different regions, which I thought, oh my gosh, that's one for ELD. It's been one of our hardest things to deal with, because most teachers that can help know the Spanish, but they don't know all the different dialects. And so when you have a newcomer with a different dialect than what you're used to, it's harder, you know. So that was a resource that was shared, in case that might benefit you. Haven't even had a chance to check it out yet. But so great conversation, and we can see that definitely there is value to continuing to bring this back on the DLI team's radar, to constantly keep it going as a resource for you. The next thing we wanted to share with you is this articulation plan. And this is something that they've been doing for a couple of years now, actually. Every time we have a meeting where they have the articulation time, this is pretty much their essential standards. Their grade level teams agreed upon essential standards of what are the things that we want our students coming in with per grade level, and what are the standards that we want our students leaving with. So these are, it's broken down between kinder, first grade essentials, and this is for Spanish language arts. Okay, so this one, when I'm showing you these things, we're looking at Spanish language arts here. So this is first grade ins, what they want first grade coming in with, and what first grade plans on using to master by the end of the year. And you get the idea. So we have Sochi. I'm going to go straight to third grade for Sochi here. These are what Marcos and Michelle had come to the agreement of, as far as what they expect their students to come in third grade already knowing or having a good idea for these skills in Spanish: vocabulary, sentence building, being able to write a complete sentence in Spanish, being able to know what this paragraph structure is for when writing in Spanish, being familiar with accent rules, and also restating the question, which we know is very important for CASP as well when they're responding. The things that you mainly work on to make sure that, okay, before my students are in fourth grade, we want to make sure that they are able to write multiple paragraph essays in Spanish, increase fluency and reading comprehension in Spanish, accent rules, and also be able to understand the race responses structure. And I know this may be different depending on your school site. I don't know if Sochi and Crystal are familiar with the races structure, the restating the question, answering the question, citing the evidence, and then evaluate. What's the example, I think it is.
Explain.
Explain, thank you. And then some of them even go for the S, but for third grade at the end. So races, so they're summarizing. But for third grade, they say up to race. Fourth grade, ins, context clues, foundation of accent rules, and then writing races in Spanish. And then the going out that they want to ensure. So basically this is what they're saying. They want their fourth graders to be able to go to fifth grade already knowing how to use Spanish oral language skills, accent rules, justifying words and spelling. Is that accents? Okay, gracias, Sochi. And then also just obviously increasing their vocabulary rigor. Now, fifth grade, I don't know who already put that, but whoever already put that, thank you. And definitely this is something, again, just like the other resource, let's continue this. Do we still feel that these are the essentials? And as a matter of fact, if you want to, as you have a chance to talk to your partner teacher, see, you know, let them know that at the DLI module that this resource was shared with them, with you. And do you want to have a discussion around it? Do we still feel like these are the essentials? Because if it's not current, it doesn't mean that these are the things that have to stay. I mean, things can be added, things could be taken away. It's that team collaboration that we want to make sure that you all have the time to do, and just a place to be able to share this information. Okay. The next thing we wanted to share, and Adriana will take it away on this piece, is the breakdown of the Spanish minutes and English minutes by content.
And so this may be a little hard to read, but you already recognize that it's within the master plan. And pretty much this is just a slam dunk. These are just raw minutes, exactly broken down by what we officially have as instructional minutes in the day, and broken down by percentage. So technically there's no variance in it, like this will not change is what I'm trying to say. So this would be kinder, first, second, and so on and so on. So once we get to 4th and 5th grade, you can see that it's a balance between 50 and 50. 3rd grade is almost there, but not quite. There's a little bit more of the Spanish still. And so this is something that, based on what many other districts were doing, we kind of compiled what would work best for us here. And so this is kind of the working plan that we've been following so far. And we have specifically, and especially at the earlier grades, we have kind of modified. So the minutes and the percentage, of course, is tight, but what's a little loose is what we are doing, the content that we're covering within those minutes. And I'll just share a little bit with you guys. For example, Corona Norco, which is one of the districts that we followed very closely at the inception of our program, they actually, for example, once they get into 3rd grade, 3rd and 4th grade, what they do is they really rely on the sciences for all of their elementary years in just Spanish. So they really don't do too much Spanish and English, for example. That's just an example. So what I'm trying to get to here is, when you guys go out to conferences, when you guys start hearing about what's happening out there, you're going to hear that it's very different, possibly. You're going to hear variances of what other districts are doing. And so what we want to make sure is you don't feel like, you don't start panicking like, oh my gosh, we're doing this wrong. We're not doing, this is what's working for us. And again, we're learning from it, we're building together. And so for the most part, we've been really focusing on here, what's happening here. And that's why you see our here, I'm pointing, but I'm not sharing the screen, but I'm just saying K2. So we really, and 3rd grade, we've had it for a couple of years. And so then that's why we have a lot of details there. But now our most recent and newest grades, which is everybody that's here present today. And thank you so much, ladies, for joining us with this conversation, because it is a very valuable and very valid conversation to have. When we get to curriculum, we just actually had a meeting with Corey, and Tina had the beautiful idea of actually inviting her. Like, she's the one that knows best what curriculum we have available, what's purchased and what's not purchased, and what all of the components that you'll have here. And so ideally, what we want to achieve is a balance, right? We want to make sure that students for 4th and 5th grade, even starting in 3rd grade, that students start seeing the math in English and the math in Spanish. We want them to start seeing science and terminology in English and science terminology in Spanish. And so that could look, there's so many different models. There's so many different ways. We are so lucky that our district is willing and always supportive in purchasing everything bilingual, English and Spanish. So you have everything in English and Spanish. However, our job, our work here is going to be identifying what is it that we want to do in English and what is it that we want to do in Spanish. And I'll just share a couple of thoughts. Some districts that we visited, they do 1 full year of English, of science. Let's say they do 4th grade full year in English science, and then 5th grade, they do it in Spanish. They do 1 week in English, 1 week in Spanish. They do 1 unit of study English, 1 unit of study in Spanish, 1 month, and then that kind of thing. So really, what we are inviting you to do is to really think about what makes sense to you, but keeping that balance and not abandoning one or the other, because we can. There are districts where they have to make the tough decision of saying, okay, for this whole year, we're just going to do science and Spanish, because our district is, the districts actually have them choose, like, well, what do you want in English and what do you want in Spanish? You can't have both. And so I remember as we were researching throughout the districts, I was thinking, I remember just praying that we didn't have to be in that difficult situation where we didn't have our curriculum in both languages, to where we could actually splurge and say, yep, I have both, I'm going to utilize both. And so, so just think from that place. I know it's a very overwhelming, very deep thought as to how we would make it all work and infuse all both. There's, in all transparency, we were just shocked to hear from Corey that 1 DLI class, actually, if you put all the resources together, you would have something like 350 textbooks or books, like resources. So that's taxing. We're not going to lie to ourselves and say it's all doable, but how can we provide some balance? Like I, as a teacher, I think I wouldn't want my students to miss out on a whole year of science in one language or the other, because we're trying to build biliteracy, but how can we make it work? So one thing my personal view, my personal opinion, thinking about this, I think I would break it down by units of study. Like, I'll do this unit of study in English and this unit of study in Spanish, and then transfer those skills. Sounds like I'm making it super easy, but just exploring those ways. And we have permission to do that. That's the beautiful thing. We're not tied to one or the other. So that's all that we have for these instructional minutes. I think Xochitl, 3rd grade is where you're a little tricky when it comes to the 60-40, but it's, you're coming down to that balance. So Bertha,
yeah, I think Bertha and I, we met earlier. We meet on our Fridays at 11 right after our little Zooms. But after experiencing a whole year, this is exactly where you're at, Crystal and Xochitl, is where we were at, reflecting back on, like, okay, how are we going to make this work? And Vasquez, you hit it right on the nail. It's like, where is that balance? Where are we finding? And we concluded, and Bertha said it exactly how I was going to share with her. I'm like, that's awesome. We're on the same page. With everything especially going on, and who knows what education is going to look like for us, we ended up with that conclusion. And I'm so happy to hear that that's where your mind was going to, Vasquez, because we're thinking units of study is the way to go. Because it really encapsulates the whole target language. And it really knows how it's really going to look like the first trimester. Half and half, whatever it is, it'll work out. If we go with units of study. I don't know, Bertha, I feel like I'm missing some good detail about what you told me too.
No, well, I was thinking too, like, the way we were able to do both this year was because 4th grade, they do rotation. So like the grade level,
that's what it was.
So they'll focus like just on science or just on social studies or just on reading. So we rotated through them. So whatever they were doing in English, we were mirroring it in Spanish. And anything that we couldn't get to, we were at least focusing on the vocabulary to be able to translate. Like with math, I was noticing what you guys had up there. I was like, okay, good, we're on the same page, that we did the bulk of the instruction in English, but we did focus a lot on the Spanish translations of vocabulary and word problems in Spanish. So that's how we were able to like still touch base with. So that's just been the juggling act all year long, is just trying to make sure we're doing both. But I found that having those rotations in each subject matter really allowed us to be able to do it in English and mirror it in Spanish in a different way, later in the day. and get our minutes in. We're always counting minutes.
Always. And that resource that I shared with you, Crystal, that you so kindly asked for, which you're so smart about, you know, that has been, that was created and revised over and over and over again. Bertha was like, okay, how are we in a minute? You know, how are we in a minute? Because we want to stay true to the model of like making sure that we're doing both, you know, for the growth of the language and vocabulary and the spelling. And the spelling was really big for our third graders to transition to fourth grade. They were because they had just started introduced to English, you know, okay, but like trying to balance it on, that's why it was more into that 50-50. But literally all morning you're doing one language and then you're shifting right after lunch to English, you know, and it's like the last hour, I mean, you know, it's like a UA time of like rotations, go, 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 you know, and making sure that you're doing yeah, it's a marathon. It'll be fun.
Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing. One last thing that I wanted to share around the minutes too is, again, all transparency, we're not going to sit here and pretend like state assessments are not important. They are very important, and they are very much of the metric that we use to measure the success of one of the metrics. That's not the only one, right? But I believe we did have this conversation towards at our last meeting, face-to-face meeting with our DLI team. And it's really always just bringing it back to our core goals for the program. And our core goal for the program is to develop biliteracy and bilingualism for our students. And so with that, we are going to feel the pressure of saying, well, my student is being tested. You mentioned math, and that's what made me think of our conversation, just recent conversation is, yes, I mean, math is not tested in Spanish, but really what is the goal of the program? And why is it that parents are making this huge sacrifice? And why is it that we are all in this together? Is because we want to develop that biliteracy. We want to make sure that beyond a state assessment, a one-time deal out of the year, we want to make sure that students understand valor proporcional and place value, you know, those things. We want to make sure that students are understanding it in deep levels and not just speaking it, you know, like really truly understand the concepts in both. And so just with that, just inspiring just some thoughts above and beyond, going above and beyond the duty of a test, which is very important. I'm not saying it's not, I'm not minimizing the importance of it. I'm just saying that let's always strive to go back to our core of why we're here and what this program is. And so when you're feeling all stressed and, oh my gosh, my kids are not ready for this test, doing what you're already doing is already proving to be a success. If your students are understanding and are able to transfer from one language to the other, and if you're giving them a math task in English and a math task in Spanish, and they are able to be successful in both, that's a win. You know, just see it that way. Look at those small short-term goals and milestones for our students, and the rest will come. And if it doesn't come, it's perfectly okay. You know, we're just improving. You know, if our scores are not looking hot one year, okay, we'll just refine and then we'll do. But I think we can live with ourselves really if we're meeting the core goals of the program. Right? And so then with that too, just a final thought on secondary, as you've been seeing here, observing on the screen, these are just some thoughts, ideas, dreams that we have as to what our DLI program, we'd like our DLI program to look. We really want to strive to offer students those global economy type of classes, bilingual classes or Spanish classes. So as you see here, the science is one that we have, as we were exploring the science, keeping up with the science terminology in science classes, it proves to be a huge best practice. And the reason being is because the Latin, you know, students are able to make not just dual connections, but like 3 ways with the Latin, the Spanish, and then the English. And so it's proven to be one of the best practices. But again, all of this, for example, for 12th grade, how cool would it be for students to take economics or an econ class in Spanish, or a technology class in Spanish, computer science and engineering in Spanish. That really would get our students ready for the global economy, right? But it all really depends, ladies, on the credentialing that is available and what credentials our teachers have in the middle and high school level. So again, just a dream, there is that plan, but we really need to fine tune it as we go.
Sorry, both of the past two slides are on the master plan, just as a reminder too. Okay, and then this right here, when we're talking about ELD, just bringing all of this back to anytime you're doing any of these activities here, phonics, morphology, syntax, lexicon, semantics, anytime you're doing any of these would be activities and lessons that would be part of your ELD minutes, okay, for those instructional minutes. And then the last thing we wanted to share with you is another one of those ongoing working documents, working plans that our teachers during DLI teachers during an articulation meeting decided what will they per grade level be doing, what are some of the lessons and activity focuses that they will be doing for every single in their English instructional minutes and their Spanish instructional minutes. Let me get rid of this over here on the slide. I don't even know if you can see my pictures.
And then I want to just start a little bit, just give you some context into it, why we started this kind of document. Yes. And this will actually not affect you as much as it does in kinder, first and second, but I think it's important for us to know the context behind this. So when we're talking about ELD and we're talking about English minutes, at the earlier grades, because the minutes are so short, and in the earlier grades, it kind of just becomes a little murky. Because, okay, what is ELD? What is it? What is the difference between developing in a strategic way the English language, and what is regular English minutes look like? And so for kindergarten, it was a slam dunk. You can see here, it's 190 instructional minutes, all in Spanish, and then 10% really just ends up being 30 instructional minutes, which guess what? 30 minutes of ELD, slam dunk, everything you're doing in English could be considered English language development. But then it starts getting a little complicated for first grade, for example, because then the instructional minutes increase. So then we have 65 English instructional minutes. What are you doing? Are you ELDing all day long there? Are you strategically doing ELD, English language development practices there? Or what else is happening? And so this is the reason why we wanted to break it down, because we want to make sure that teachers are doing and students are doing that protected ELD time when they're going deeper into the language, when they're really studying the components of the language to understand it better, and then what else is happening. So then this is what the first grade team is saying. So these are the top are the activities. You just go back a tiny bit, girlfriend. Sorry, that's okay. So the top part is what our first grade teachers are saying they're doing for ELD specific. And then for the rest of their 35 minutes, they're doing vocabulary development, and they're going over the essential questions. So they covered it in Spanish, but now they're reinforcing in English. And so as you can see here, the reason why it's so murky is because anytime you're doing English and you're doing this, vocabulary development is ELD as well. But we need to find a way, and you see, if you go to second grade, Tina, it's second grade, the minutes increase even more, right? And so what are you doing specifically to develop language, and then what's happening for English for the rest of the time? And so as you can see there, okay, we're not only going over the language star assignments, the phonics and the semantics and the figurative speech and all that good stuff, but we're also doing a little bit of writing in Spanish, in English, I'm sorry. We're doing a little bit of grammar transfer skills in English. And then they're doing the science and the social studies in English there. For third grade, you can start seeing that you start seeing more activities in English and less strategic activities in ELD. And so that's third grade. So now fourth and fifth grade, you ladies also, Bertha and Gisela, you contributed to this document, right, already? Is this something you ladies did?
Yes, they were in on, it was our April collaborative meeting we had last year.
Okay, cool. And so you can see this. And so Crystal, now that we're getting into fifth grade, then what would that look like for you? So you can click there, and it could be very well that it looks very similar to fourth grade. I mean, vertically or articulating, that would make more sense. But again, as we're learning, as we're growing, this is a fluid document, just as all of them are. And so what kinds of things do we want to consider specific language development versus just regular English time? And so we go back and forth. So any questions? This is a moment where we really would like to really take questions on this, because as we grow and as we go through the years, this topic right here, ladies, seems to be, again, a topic of clarification. And so this definitely would be a great time to discuss. If there's any thoughts, any questions, any confusions.
And I just wanted to add something before we take questions. This document was also created to help establish some sort of a guideline when it comes to grading, because last year was the year that we started to develop the DLI report card, and that's going to be another module that we'll share with you what the grading and the DLI report cards look like. But when trying to figure out your instructional minutes of English and Spanish for your grade level, you also have to look at what are the activities and lessons that you're going to be taking as a grade within those minutes, and then we for the grade book will need to be categorized so that the balance for Spanish is 50% in your category grade book, 50%, and then the other 50%, if we're talking fourth and fifth grade, is going to have to balance out to be that whole 100%, and then it'll end up getting you your overall grade, inclusive of your English average, your Spanish average will get you the overall. So we'll talk about that more, but this document right here will really help you as you're having that conversation with your partner teacher.
And it's fluid, and it can change every year as you're realizing different things. Any questions, any thoughts?
Actually, let's do the questions here.
Oh, got it. Okay, cool.
This is an exit ticket here. So if you click on that last slide there for the exit tickets, what you're going to do is you're going to grab a Post-it note of the corresponding color of what you'd like to share or ask as a question. So right here, you can put any takeaways. So how to grab a Post-it note if you're not familiar with using Jamboard is you click on this little this is a little piece of paper sticky note. And when that sticky note pops up, depending on whatever color you're going to be commenting on or asking about, will correspond with these colors here of the Post-it notes. You just click in there and you type away just like that, okay? So blue will be if you want to share any takeaways you've gotten from this module, any questions you might have about what was shared in this module, some next steps that maybe your gears are already turning as to what you plan on looking into or working on, and then any needs in order to help you throughout these planning stages and research stages so that you feel comfortable. And how do you feel? How do you feel? So you can pick whatever you want to. You could do more than one if you would like, or just one, or the most important, prioritize there. grab a sticky note and then drag it to the corresponding color. And if you'd like us to address you specifically, you can put your name in there. You can do, there's little 3 dots if you want to add your name, but you don't have to. I like that. What I see there, I don't know who mentioned it, but I would like to take another look at our weighted grade books and reevaluate some of the categories. Oh, maybe that's Bertha. I think I see your little icon there.
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah, and what makes you want to look at that again? Just out of curiosity, what are your thoughts surrounding that?
Right now, what you had just said about, you know, it kind of evolves. And I know like in one, we had like high frequency words and, you know, it's like, I'm not really sure that we really put that much emphasis. So just going back and thinking about just reflecting what we did in the year, what we put most priority on and making sure that it's like weighted, you know, correctly. So just, it was what you said at the end right there. So I was like, oh yeah, we need to do that.
Gotcha, gotcha. Somebody's saying sticking to, oh, this is Hisela, sticking to units of study by language, or that's Sochi, is a great idea. Units of study from Hisela. Is there English phonics in primary grades? What do you mean by that, Sochi? It's in, as far as in the curriculum, or?
Right. So when they're switching to English, is there like, knowing their sounds and reading in English, like, phonetically, all that, or there's no phonics at all, just Spanish?
So there are, yes, so the program is highly, highly, highly suggestive of not introducing any kind of official phonemic awareness in English. So we're doing heavy, heavy duty phonemic awareness in Spanish. However, that's the program, that's research. But because we are very fluid and very flexible, and we need to be that way, our first grade teachers began telling us very early on that students can actually handle, they are able to handle the high frequency words and some English concepts that the regular model doesn't really suggest that we should do. And so we, in the effort of not confusing our kids too much, we do not do the written official phonemic awareness in both languages, but teachers in the first grade did start and do a little bit of the high frequency, just oral and visual, but not official.
All right. I feel much better after this explanation in minutes. I love the idea of switching for units of study. And I'm going to go ahead and agree with Adriana where she says, I feel extremely grateful that you're joining us today and that you've joined us for these past 3 modules. I do. I'm going to add my initials there too. All right. Is there anything else that I missed here on this little Padlet? Nope. Oh, there's one. I feel much better about minutes. I also really like the idea of having units of study. I feel that this is the best way to be able to teach each subject in both languages. It will also help with grading. Awesome. And yeah, when you're trying to consolidate your minutes and balance your minutes, definitely, I definitely agree with that. And units of study, very engaging, because they're making connections for every single content area. And so the more connections that they're making, the more impact it's going to have. And the knowledge will go to their long-term memory.
Then just how are we feeling with ELD? If you can just give us a thumbs up, like I feel pretty clear as to what the difference is between ELD And English minutes.
Feeling good?
Yeah, okay. Okay. Well,
Okay.
the conversation is always open around this, especially when you're there in practice and you're like, okay, what's the difference here? Honestly, ladies, anytime we're doing English, we're teachers at heart. If a student doesn't understand a word, or we find the need to really go deeper into explaining a concept or just a portion of the English language. It's not like we're going to say, oh, this is not ELD time, I'm not going to go there right now. We're not going to do that. So ELD is really anytime we're teaching strategically English, right? But there is that, like on your lesson plans, just like the official on your lesson plans, you should have that separate 30-minute ELD. This is what I'm doing, really, really strategic to develop the English language, and then this is the rest of my English time.
And what you mean by that is, I don't know if Crystal and Social are understanding that, because we have to always marry everything. That's how we make it all fit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even though on lesson plans it's like listed, you know, oh, from here to here, but you really are doing it like throughout a certain period of time, making sure that we are, like you're saying, targeting. So it's not like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, this is my ELD time, 30 minutes, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but it's embedded in the whole template. I mean, I hope everybody understands that part, because it took me a while to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a difficult concept, because you're like, ELD, okay, well, we're doing English, like, what are we doing? So it's really nice that it's taken us this time to really separate both, but at the same time understand that there's a common layer.
All right. Anybody want to share out any other things on your mind in regards to instructional minutes, ELD?
The only thing that I was going to add to the needs, I mean, I think this is actually covering that, but it's just the continuing, how much Bertha and I have appreciated any professional development, you know, like in terms of strengthening our muscles and bones on these specific things that our DLI program needs, you know. We appreciated how we got to go to, you know, and these are small organizations or programs or people who are getting together, but like certain, you know, the conference or the session went to like Mesas de Corazon, you know, it's going to come out of me, because we got so much in just like that one day of being there for 4 or 5 hours. You know, it's amazing. Acentos made so much more sense, and I was like, glory to God, like we're gonna really be fine, you know, like. And my kids, we do it every Monday since we've done Zoom, so I don't know, they're probably sick of me now. They're like, whatever.
No, you're gonna have to share it, Bertha. I mean, Gisela, both of you are going to have to share out, because that's something that I know everyone has been.
You're gonna get your kids and they're like, otra vez.
Well, you know, that plan that you were looking at, and you're like, oh, somebody must have added that in there. That mirrors exactly what we took from that conference, which was just kind of the pathways as to what children should know at which grade in the pathway to acentuación mastery. So I don't know who went in there and updated it, but that mirrors exactly what we learned there. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, cool, someone's already on it.
Nice, nice. That's good to know. Okay, so
Tina, sorry, do you mind sharing about the conference we just attended with the DLI that you'll be sharing the one from Californians Together? So we just went to one. It really was not titled DLI. It was something like supporting English learners and that kind of thing. But it reminded me, because several of the teachers that put together the Maestros de Corazón, they were there. And it was a really good conference, like a really cool webinar. I'm not even sure. I'm so sorry if they haven't sent us the link. Okay. You know which one I'm talking about?
Yes. They shared the different strategies, different DLI specific lesson strategies.
So one of the things that was on our to-do list, when they sent us the recording, we were going to share it with all of the DLI team. And they also shared a really cool one-stop shop with a bunch of DLI resources. And one of the things that I absolutely loved is that La Secretaría de Educación of Mexico, they actually opened up their Spanish books, their Spanish curriculum. And so it's there. Do you guys know the Chispa website? You guys are familiar with it?
I'm seeing
I
Bertha
think
saying that.
Alvarez told me about it, like in a message. Check this out. I just haven't had time.
So that one is a really good one that we'll send your way as soon as we have. I know they sent the website, but I'm not sure if we have the recording already because they sent from so many of the other ones. But we'll get that to you guys. But yes, talking about the professional development opportunities, that would be great.
Okay, we have something in the chat before we close out. A dating site comes up. You trying to get Sochi in trouble, Vasquez?
No, hold on. Let me send the website for now. Let me put the website and then we'll send you guys the let me find it though. Okay, Tina, sorry I interrupted.
While she's searching for the link, just thank you so much for joining. Just to remind you, our next module is on Monday at 1 o'clock, module 4. We're going to go in depth with the curriculum exploration. Adriana had mentioned that we invited our curriculum expert, Corey Bootsma, to join us here on this module. She is going to be sharing all of the basically similarities and differences between our English curriculum and our Spanish curriculum, so that you guys are not expecting for Maravillas to have the same exact things that our Wonders has, and throughout the different pieces of content curriculum. And so she's going to walk you through some of those things and share with you what we have available for DLI, and here, purchased and available items for DLI. So that'll be a great overview of sharing materials. She's going to share materials that we may not even know are there that are available to us. So that'll be module 4. Anybody have any last minute questions, thoughts before we peace out? All right, I think we will end this session, you guys. Oop, there's 4 chats here.
I just wanted to say that, look at the coolest people are wearing their shirts today.
Oh, it's Spirit Day. It's School Spirit Triple Crown Gear Day.
Danny, pay attention who's wearing their Spirit shirts.
That's the bonus points. Who gets the extra $20 for Southwest at the beginning of the year? No.
Ooh, there you go.
That would be cool.
Shoot, let me run upstairs and grab my Triple Crown shirt.
Thank you, ladies.
All right, love you guys. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.